We broke ground and started June 6th of 2006, 666 as we like to call it.
Wow. Man, that goes back a while. That's 20 years.
That is exactly, 20
Holy
years.
cow. The Anime Business, brought to you by Animego. Here's what we have coming out. Buy it today at MediaOCD.com for an exclusive slipcover, or from other anime retailers. English and Japanese captions are courtesy of the Kleckner Foundation. Thank you.
I discovered anime in high school. My best friend at the time, he was the guy who was, who has all the anime collections, and this was when even sharing anime was like pretty complicated. The codecs for compression wasn't very good at the time, and you're sharing on CDs.
So this was the AVI fan sub era.
Oh, even before that, it was like I forget the format, but it was before AVI.
Oh my god!
And so his recommendation of the first anime I should watch, which was Ava, and it was like compressed 26 episodes. Each one was like 320 by 240. But that was when I was hooked. That was my first anime title.
What kind of kid were you? Just to kind of set the table here.
I was a pretty nerdy kid. Going to the library, I liked reading books about space, technology, computers, robotics, all the usual nerdy kid stuff, I like to think.
Right. So, you went to Berkeley for undergrad then, and that was computer science, right?
That's right. So,
that seems like a natural progression to me.
Yeah. When you're Asian, basically your parents are like, either you're an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor. So I picked the one that I liked the most. My dad was a doctor, and but for me, I just could not stand the sight of blood. I'm like, okay, I think I'll do engineering. Berkeley was one of the most prestigious programs to apply for electrical engineering, computer science, and after applying and getting in, I was super excited to see what the highest level of what engineering looked like in college.
Was there anything specific that you wanted to do, or were you just like? Was there any field that you were like particularly gung-ho for?
Berkeley Computer Science, it's electrical engineering computer science. Once you're in the major, you kind of have your choice of which disciplines you want to go into. The first year or two of classes are basically the same, like math and physics and all that. And so you kind of had a little bit more time to figure it out. And the tracks were like, pure computer science, or you can go into like a pure electrical engineering, and then there's options in the middle. For me, I always liked computer science, being introduced very early on to the personal PC, and then having friends at the time where we all had like shareware, and we would share that with each other, and then you would also get into learning basic programming, and I just was also really enjoyed tinkering with computers, like upgrading memory and opening those things up and all of that. And so for me, just something with computers and software was I felt like my natural calling.
That took some engineering work to add RAM back then. Like you had to really know what you were doing. Yeah, it's so much easier now.
Although a lot more expensive for the last couple of months. I joined a fraternity I like to say it's a fraternity, but it's actually a nerd fraternity. It's called the Eta Kappa Nu. It's basically a fraternity for electrical engineers, computer scientists. Basically, you can apply if you're somewhere in like the top quartile of students, and it kind of set the things in motion for the rest of my career. I got to hang out and be friends with some of the smartest folks in Berkeley, and then quite a number of them ended up being my co-founders for Crunchyroll. Obviously, I didn't know it at the time, but when you start a company, you kind of gravitate, especially when you're right out of college, you kind of gravitate towards people that you've worked with in the past. Out of college, you don't have work experience, so the people you work with in the past are basically your buddies from college. And because we're all in the same major, we all had similar coursework, and some of our coursework had workshops. For example, you would be working nights and weekends to finish a big coding project, or trying to build a video decoder using FPGAs or something like that. But in that kind of trial tribulation, you basically get to know your fellow comrades, and you kind of get a sense of, okay, what are they like? Are they good pairing with you, and so on. After I finished college, I basically applied to grad school, computer science at Carnegie Mellon. And at the time, there's a period between graduating and going to grad school where you can do whatever you want. People, they kind of either go travel Europe, or they can get like a summer internship. I got accepted into an internship at VMware at the time. One of the alumni from this fraternity, Eta Kappa Nu, his name is James Hong. He was the founder of this little website called Hot or Not, which is like the biggest dating site at the time. And he
wait, people actually met each other on Hot or Not?
Oh, absolutely.
I only went there for the judgment.
Well, that is the first part of it, and then once you do the judgment, then later on you're like, well, I want to meet this person, and then you can subscribe and then connect with them.
Fascinating.
So so he basically that summer had his own essentially intern program, and he was recruiting folks from the fraternity Eta Kappa Nu. I talked to him and said, I'm kind of interested. And he said, well, you won't regret this. Come try it out. You can always work in industry. This summer, you can see what a startup is like from the inside. And from that point on, there wasn't really any looking back.
So set the table for us. For people who have never experienced startup culture, what is it like at a Silicon Valley startup? How close is it to the HBO show?
One of the co-founders of Crunchyroll, Cedric, he actually consulted for the show, for the writers for the show. So they get it pretty spot on. I don't know if we Hot or Not was the same as Hot Dog or Not, but you kind of set your own agenda. You figure out what you want to do. You're doing really fun things because you think other people would want to enjoy what you're building. You don't have to go convince people, because you at least for us, we're all engineers. We can just build the thing, and then we just press a button and then ship it out. And then the most gratifying thing was writing code to build the product that you can put in front of millions of people, and then immediately get their response and their feedback, and to see kind of how they like the product, how they didn't, and then you can go keep iterating. It was like the most gratifying thing ever. At Hot or Not, I was working on this project called Yet Another Friendster Ripoff. Well, that's the acronym, but it was called YAFRO in short. Basically, think of it like Friendster, except it was very much photo-driven, mobile photo-driven. You can almost say it was the predecessor of Instagram. And except back in the day, there wasn't apps, so there wasn't even smartphones.
I was going to say, this was pre-iPhone.
That's right. So you would have your feature phone, which would have like a dinky, like a 0.5 megapixel camera or something, and then you would take a picture, and you would have to send it as a email with the picture attached to the website, and we would have like a special email account for every single person on the website. And then once they sent it, then we would process it, and then it would show up in your feed to your friends. So that was the product. And for YAFRO, I was working on a feature called Groups. Before I started, the YAFRO platform was just a social network, and you with your feed. And I added a groups feature, meaning that anyone can start a group of common interest or something, and then you can then add people to the group, and then they can all upload photos. That was my first real taste of building something and shipping it to users, and also I think really the first practical application of what I learned in school. At the time, even graduating Berkeley, it was just all bookworm knowledge. It was like you can build compilers, and you can build like databases, but you didn't really know how does that connect to building like a website or a startup. And that internship basically helped me bridge the gap to being able to build consumer-facing experiences. After that internship, Jim and James said, you know what, like you should just stay. You should like keep working at Hot or Not. This is clearly something you enjoy, which I did, and it was really fun. My parents, they're Asian, and they're like, go get your PhD, and then go figure out the rest of your life. I basically did that. I packed my stuff and went to Pittsburgh, where it was really, really cold. It was something was always lingering in the back of my head, which was, I really want to do more of that I did that summer. And so that bug never really left me. And even though I was just a few months into the grad school program, I reconnected with some old friends. One friend from like middle school, and another from Berkeley days, and we basically got together virtually, remotely at the time, and we said, hey, why don't we start working together and start building fun stuff. Around that time, this technology called Ajax came out, actually made by IE and Microsoft, and that was basically the cornerstone of being able to build real applications on the web, because now you can send a request from your browser page, get a response back from the server without having to completely refresh the whole page. So we took that technology, we ran with it, and we said, what would be something that will be never done before? Google just released the Google Maps API. So Google Maps is starting to get popular, and they open up the API so anyone can use the API to build like a Google Maps application. Myself, my co-founder, James, we basically, like right as we opened, we took that and we started hacking on it. And over a weekend, we built a social network built on maps. It was called Frapper, or Friend Mapper. We weren't very creative with the names, and everything ended with like a instead of an ER, it's just a R or whatever.
I was going to say, you might want to workshop that one. It's
Yeah, it could have other meanings, but we thought it was meant Friend Mapper. It allowed anyone to just very easily, with one click, create a map and invite all their friends to the map, and then their friends can drop in pins without having to know about, okay, what is longitude, latitude, and all those kinds of things. We shared it with our friends at HKN, and because all our friends back then, after you leave college, you don't usually stay in the same college for grad school or wherever. You kind of go back to some work or go to other universities. That was kind of a way for us to connect and see where all our friends went. And then we kind of forgot about it. And then like 2-3 weeks later, our server started catching fire. It was like messages, your emails saying, hey, your load is like going crazy, like something's wrong, your database is blowing up, and we're like, what's going on? People have created like tens of thousands of maps, and then the traffic was just blowing up. And one of the use cases I think people were using this for is there were a lot of online forums back in the time, like using like vBulletin or BBS or PHP or those kind of software. Right. But even though they're interest groups, they don't really know where physically everyone is. People are making these maps, and they started adopting this map as their way to keep track of their forum in a mapping and social networking way. And then we even had randomly make these little stickers that look like a pin and with the Frapper name on it, and they would stick it into their bulletin board, and you could click on that and it opens up to their official map. That basically took off, and then that was kind of when I was just burning the candle on both ends. Daytime, it was like the full PhD like coursework. Nighttime, it was making sure the servers can keep scaling because it was just growing. And then we had people very interested in what we built, and they wanted to acquire us. All of this took the span of like, I don't know, a couple of months. And so this was very much a whirlwind. We talked to quite a few folks who were interested to have acquisition talks. And one of those parties was actually Max Levchin, who's the founder of PayPal. We were able to get to a place where we both liked the deal and the outcome, and then we ended up doing the deal, and that was my my first entrepreneurial exit. And that was also what I think really enabled me to take the next step, which is convincing my parents that I don't need to continue the PhD program, because even if you can do something at a startup, it's still not normal to say you can have a career as an entrepreneur. But with a successful exit, I can go to my parents and say, look, like I could actually do this.
I made all this money.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go do more startup-y stuff now, and so that's what brought me back to the Bay Area, and then worked with Max for a bit, and then from there we started the Crunchyroll journey.
Right. So what was the initial vision like? What was the spark of the idea?
The spark was pretty simple, which was it wasn't very straightforward to get anime content. My co-founder James, who we were actually roommates when we were both at the previous company acquired, and we were both working with Max, and we said, oh, we'll just get a place together. And then I remember every Thursday, he was a huge Naruto fan, and every Thursday,
as everyone was back then,
yeah, he would right after work, he's like, oh, it's 7 p.m. like the new episode's gonna drop, and so he would like start it, I guess, the torrent the night before so that it would be complete, and then when the time we go home, it's like, okay, the episode's ready and we can start. We can start watching. Torrents aren't perfect. A lot of times, when you grab it, like you're stuck. You have to wait for the uploads. And then there were also like pirate sites that you can go to, but they were seem shady. They charge money. You can also look it up on YouTube, but YouTube had a limit of like 10 minutes per ep. And so each anime episode gets cut into 3 chunks. And sometimes you can find chunk number 2, but not chunk number 3. And so it was all kind of not a great experience. And so we kind of thought to ourselves, hey, we're engineers. We know how to build stuff. Why don't we build a YouTube, but just for anime content, except we'll like have the organization be really easy. We'll have people contribute to the catalog, and then it will just be like one click, and for people to start streaming. And so that's kind of how the idea for Crunchyroll came about, and we broke ground and started incorporated and started building in June 6th of 2006, 666 as we like to call it, and that's the starting incorporation date for Crunchyroll.
Wow, man, that goes back a while. That's 20 years.
That is exactly, 20
Holy
years.
cow. Yeah, those early days, I mean, video on the internet was barely a thing at that point. Like it was, YouTube existed, obviously, and there were pirate sites here and there, but like bandwidth was expensive. How were you doing this?
It wasn't easy. So bandwidth was definitely very expensive. We tried to optimize the hell out of encoding so it wouldn't take so much space. Try to basically arbitrage and find the cheapest co-location or hosting or bandwidth deals we could find. It wasn't possible to monetize because there was no such thing as video ads, because video ads did not exist. We had display ads, but they weren't nearly that that good at monetizing. And so we basically asked our community to start making donations. And we said, if you donate to us, it will really help us keep the lights on, and then you get this gold-colored star next to your name, and that's how everyone else would also see that you've donated to this platform. That actually works surprisingly well. Not enough to take care of all the server costs, but enough to get us like a few more extend our runway as we were essentially maxing out our credit cards and things like that. I still remember one of the internet payment wasn't obviously as developed as today, so we basically set up a PO box and we said, hey, if you want to donate whatever you can just mail us your money, and we posted the mailing address on the site, and then like a week later, we would go to the post office and check our PO box, and then it's like nothing's there. A week later, we check again, and it's like at some point we started getting letters. Like every time we checked, there were like 5 or 6 letters. Like there would be like $10 in one of them, $20 in one of them, and then once in a while we would get like pesos or like Singaporean dollars. We would get like mixed currency, and we're like, we don't know what to do with this. So we ended up just like putting it on a board somewhere just to show that, hey, here are all the places around the world that fans are donating to what we're building.
That's got to feel pretty cool. Now, was there a goal in mind to like go commercial with this, or was this just what you wanted it to be initially?
At the time, we were just doing this for fun. We thought this was something that the anime fans out there needed, which was one place for everyone to just go and make it easy for them to watch their favorite shows. We didn't really understand what commercial meant. You know, we're engineers. We didn't even know what a license was. We didn't know you needed to get a license. We were just starting to learn what DMCAs were because we started getting a notice or two. We're like, what is this? And then we had to research DMCA and all of that. But the site, kind of took on a life of its own, and we were just 100% focused on keeping the hard drives from not burning up and making sure we can keep scaling it. And at some point, VCs approached us. They were like, "Hey, what you guys build actually is quite interesting. Maybe we can invest into this." And that's when we thought, oh, actually, maybe if the VCs are interested, there may be a commercial opportunity. How do we figure out what that looks like?
Yeah. How do you figure that out? Because this is a piracy site.
Yeah.
How do you make the jump from piracy site to actual legitimate licensed content?
Yeah.
How do you navigate that, especially from a VC point of view?
Well, with VCs, we just told them, look, this is like YouTube. Users are uploading the content and organizing it themselves. Mm-hmm. But unlike YouTube, we're pretty sure someone has the rights to grant to us. So we just need to go find them and talk to them.
Easy.
Yeah, very easy. And then and we said, look, this thing could be as big as Cartoon Network, and that's worth billions of dollars. So invest in us. And we also believe that if we got investment from VC and had that credibility, then it would be so much easier for us to go talk to the eventual licensors, whoever they are. Vinrock, the venture arm of the Rockefeller Foundation, they invested, and we're extremely lucky to have them believe in us because anime seems so big today. That's such a no-brainer. At the time, there weren't many VCs that considered this as something that could be real. They didn't understand anime as a category, because they didn't grow up watching it.
Yeah, what was the reaction from most of them? Okay, so VCs, for those who don't swim those waters, they obviously have feeler, usually younger junior people on their team that are looking for smaller startups that could be interesting. And I imagine that's how that got the ball rolling with you, right?
Yes.
So once you got up to the VP, the C-suite level, what were the reactions of what are these weird cartoons basically? Or
well, so we would go in and do the pitch with the investment committees, and then basically just ask a few questions, and then later on we would hear back. Okay, are they interested to move forward or not? Definitely there was a lot of concerns around the copyright issues and questioning whether we could solve them or not. There were concerns about, could this audience be monetizable? Is there a real business here? And so the VCs that gave us term sheets were the ones who were able to get comfortable around those things, and that's where Vinrock was able to get to. With their funding, we basically said, okay, we have to figure out what is the commercial model for this. So step one was to go get those licenses, and so right after we closed the investment, I got on a plane and along with my other co-founder, Vu, and then we started making the rounds in Japan. Now, the problem was we didn't really know anyone in Japan.
You don't speak Japanese.
And we don't speak Japanese, but we knew one person who did stuff in Japan, and that was one of our friends, Ashwin, who was the president of BitTorrent. And BitTorrent was actually quite popular as a consumer brand in Japan at the time because there would be these NAS devices. It's like a hard drive plus like a networking thing. And they would install the BitTorrent client into that NAS. That way you can use the NAS to do like a BitTorrent download directly to the NAS without having to have a computer be turned on for the whole thing to work. So we approached Ashwin and said, hey, you know how to work with Japan, tell us what to do. He introduced us to someone on his team who ended up being the head of Japan, that's Vince. Together with Vince, we started just making the rounds. Now,
Vince Trotino, you're talking about.
That's right, yeah.
Yes.
Now, at the time, Vince also didn't know anyone in anime because none of us did. But he was more from the device manufacturing side. But he can call up his Rolodex and just ask, hey, do you guys know anyone in anime? And so we just started like doing these little mini hops. I remember one of the first companies we talked to is still a very, very small studio. We would just present them with what we're doing, and they're like, okay, that's interesting. And then at the end of each meeting, we would say, can you like tell us some of your friends and give us your friends' contacts? And then they actually were all quite receptive. Like they were all willing to kind of help us make introductions. And then through many of these introductions, we started to just organically talk to more and more people in the anime industry.
Now, how cognizant were you of the U.S. side of the anime business at this point?
So we knew of Viz and Funimation because they were like sending us DMCA notices, and then every time they sent us DMCA notice, we would obviously take it down. Sometimes with those DMCA notices, they would send maybe a very impolite message about us, and we're like, what do we do? But we also tried to talk to them at the time. It was also hard for them to work with us. Because it would be credibility risk on their side. And as we learned later on, they didn't have the anime streaming rights. No one did, because streaming rights was not a thing, because it was like television, it was DVD, it was merch, but streaming was such a new category that the anime productions that were formed at a time did not contemplate streaming rights. And so there wasn't someone you could go to and they would be like, oh, I had this all along, I just didn't give it to someone, here you go. And so for basically all of 2008, we were evangelizing the power of streaming, and we started doing deals with some of the more progressive anime studios. The first one being Gonzo GDH, and they were one of the more vertically integrated studios in the sense that they had like their own IP, they produced their own content, and so they actually could, without too many other decision makers, be able to say, I want to do streaming because I own everything, and everything must include streaming. Then I must also have streaming that I can give to Crunchyroll.
Right. Well, Gonzo was also at the time, I forget the name of their CEO, but he was really very American.
Ishikawa-san, yeah.
Ishikawa, yeah. He was very American in his thinking, and
that's right.
Also really tech savvy.
Yeah. So they started streaming with us. I think this was like July of 2008. We had two titles from GDH, Blast Rider and Tower of Druaga. And then at the time, because streaming was such a new thing, we literally had to write the paper on it, meaning we had to come up with a legal agreement of what does streaming mean. Because it's hard, it's easy to define, use legal agreements when you already have a previous template for like home video and TV that hasn't changed for decades. But for streaming, what does it even mean to stream? Is it from like your computer to my computer? Is it under my brand? Is it your server to my? We have to figure those things out, and then a lot of those agreements and templates basically I think still persist to this day. So that's when we started the streaming business, and then we knew that there were like 40, 50 shows on air, and we really made it our mission to go secure all of it. And so we just kept knocking on doors for most of 2008. Some licensors enjoyed learning about what's going on in the US with the internet and streaming and fans overseas. But some of them also were like, oh, I know you guys, you're the pirates, get out of here. But we knocked on enough doors and found enough people to eventually reach TV Tokyo. And I think that was when things really changed with our Naruto deal with TV Tokyo. 2008
is a really interesting time because the DVD market on which the whole U.S. side of the anime industry depended on was just imploding at that time. Musicland had gone under, ADV I think had gone bust at that point, so it had Jenny on. Did you get wind of this? Were you like, were you offering a way out of that, or were you just kind of pitching as just like unaware of all of that happening?
We had no clue.
Really?
We didn't really buy DVDs ourselves. We were just raised on the internet, so we just watched streaming only. We read in the news that like the home video business was having these issues, but for us it was really, we saw streaming as this new category, and if you wanted the home video, it's a very different product. It's dubbed. It comes out 2-3 years later. It's produced. There's like a nice packaging. You can get it at your home, like a Best Buy or some other stores. For us, we just wanted the shows right as they're coming out on TV in Japan for everyone around the world to watch. So that's kind of what we're pitching. And we told licensors, look, we had this rare luck or opportunity to have aggregated so many fans globally who love to watch anime. We don't have the license, but we want to get a license from you. We want to turn this gray market into a well-lit place for all the fans to be able to engage with their favorite titles, and to build a destination for the entire industry to reach fans around the world.
And that's what ticked the box. That's what finally made a couple of them go, okay, let's give this a shot.
That's right. And I think at the time, along with the home video challenges, I think Cartoon Network was also deciding to do more of their own original programming and giving less time slots to animation, Japanese anime. And so I think that also meant that a lot of titles just did not get the kind of exposure they were looking for. And so they were looking for a way to reach audiences directly.
So in order to get, you signed your first few deals, but in order to get legitimate product on your site, I can't imagine that the Japanese side was happy with their licensed product commingling with, Date Bio fansub rips and such. So you had to clear everything that was pirated off the site.
100%. Yeah.
That had to be terrifying because that was like 98% of your stuff.
Yeah, that it was terrifying. Well, one, we did try. We're like, well, why don't we keep the rest of it in another area, and we keep the official in another area, and at least you can take advantage of the audience and siphon them over. But our licensors were persistently saying like that's not possible. It all has to be clean or not, just like you were saying.
Yeah.
And so then we said, okay, well, how do we go ahead and do this? And I think we were fortunate in that, unlike most other maybe services that were trying this kind of approach, we had built a lot of community features and functionality on the site for the last couple of years. Even if we had all the simulcasts on the site, you're not watching every single show. Maybe there's like 5 or 6 shows that you really want to watch, and that's like 30 minutes per show times 5 or 6 shows. What do you spend the rest of your time with? We know that a lot of anime fans were quite vocal. They love to talk about their favorite shows and theories, and we even had a section of the forum that had fan talk about the business side of the industry, kind of like a mini A&N forum, but sitting on the Crunchyroll side. And I think there's probably like a pretty decent amount of crossover in that audience. We basically just went to our community and we posted the messages, and we told them, look, like, this is the only way for us to move forward, and we think this is the right way to go. We would love for you guys to keep supporting us, because if you do, it's only going to get better from here. We're going to start with 7 simulcast titles, but we're going to keep adding every quarter, and we're going to keep adding catalog every quarter. So please, like, bear with us. Around like half of our audience really embraced that message, and the other half was like, oh, if I can't find my shows here, I'm out of here. But the other half was like debating that half and saying, you guys really need to support this, because this is going to pay the creators who are of the shows that you're watching, and finally there's a legitimate way to stream anime content. We basically set a date. It was December 31st, 2008, January 1st, 2009, like over basically when the year flipped, we pressed the button, deleted, took down every single title that was user uploaded, and then re-uploaded only the official licensed content. And then that was kind of when the Crunchyroll officially started.
Obviously, we're getting a few new titles here and there and a few catalog titles. But the killer app of the day was obviously Naruto. How the hell did you get Naruto?
It wasn't easy, but I think it was right place at the right time. TV Tokyo was extremely progressive, and we were very lucky to have met them, and they were run by a leader in the anime industry, Kawasaki-san, and he was extremely progressive about what anime going forward would be like, which he thought streaming was going to be a big part of. At the time, I think Cartoon Network was deciding whether they want to continue picking up Naruto or not. He made the decision that regardless of what happens there, it should be streamed online. When we started talking to TV Tokyo, we hadn't known any of this at the time, but that was one of the reasons of why they wanted to do that then. They visited our office, they met us quite a few times, and I think what really came through to them was just how persistent and genuine and maybe annoying we were to wanting to work with the anime industry to build Crunchyroll into this official place for anime streaming. That was when they decided, okay, we should do this. But we weren't the only bet. The Naruto simulcast also was I think streamed on Hulu at essentially the same time. So the two platforms both streamed the simulcast starting in I think like late January of 2009. So that wasn't the official start of the streaming era, if you will.
Let's talk about the logistics of this for a second. Now, you're getting materials from Japan as what, ProRes files, or how did actual content come over to you?
Yeah, the ProRes files were way too big. And we didn't have great ways of transferring large data sets as we do today. And so we had to figure out that workflow. And it wasn't very straightforward. And I remember we basically had to go to TV Tokyo, and we said, okay, here's the resolution, or here's the intermediary file we needed. You guys don't have it digitally, but you have like the tape, and so we need you to convert this into a digital file, and then also convert that digital file into a format that is high resolution enough for us, but also with a small enough file that we can transfer it within X number of minutes or something like that. And the challenge there was not every licensor wanted to give us the files before broadcast, because obviously they would be worried if it was leaked, it would be a huge problem. And so sometimes they would give it to us right as broadcast started, so we would have to make sure to process things really, really quickly. So we work quite closely with their tech teams. We actually even brought our own like physical encoders there just to see if there's ways we can accelerate it by having them put a file in our encoder, and our encoder encodes it into our format so we can update our encoders without having to needing to tell them a new profile or things like that. But eventually we figured it out. And then along with that, we also had to figure out how to translate the titles quickly enough. For that, we had to start by getting not the final version, but like a draft version of the video with like watermarks. So then we then passed that along with like a very low res to subtitlers, and then they would have a few days to turn it around, up to a week. Yeah. And then once that's done, then we can kind of all put it together and then wait for the broadcast to finish. And then when it's done, like 30 minutes later, we press a button and then the episode is available online.
You were, and they still are, translating a ton of shows at the same time. How do you even go about finding that many translators?
Well, that was an area where there was actually a lot of existing supply, which is there were so many fan sub groups out there who were already translating these shows, and they were doing it because they were passionate about translating. They wanted to show that they are good at translating and localizing, and then they also pick up shows based on what shows they enjoy translating, because translating one show versus another is not the same. For example, Gintama is a very difficult to translate show because it's got a lot of humor, a lot of cultural reference, right, puns and things like that. And for those, in order to make a good translation, you actually had to know the nuances of that in Japanese and be able to localize that into the nuances in English. And so how we started that was started by first working with this company called MX, and then
MX Media.
MX Media, right. And then we ended up later acqui-hiring MX Media. But basically discovered was that MX, we thought was like a professional translation company, and it was, but it was really just project management for like the fan sub community.
Right, a bunch of freelancers that were fan subbers.
That's right. We basically would just at that point go to the fan sub community and then say, hey, like, before you were doing this for cred and for free. Now you can get paid to do translation. Join us. We'll pay you. There's actually too many translators, so first come first serve, and we'll let you pick the shows that you want to translate. And so the fan sub community essentially picked up the baton and is to this day, imagine the ones that are essentially localizing all of this content.
Now, MX got a lot of heat online in their early days because they were kind of paying fairly, like at the time, much lower than standard rates for translation. Is that something that you guys kind of had to work with them on to like kind of get them up to something that would be like livable wage standards?
Yeah. One thing to note, obviously, is the translators themselves didn't make anything before, and now they were getting paid. Two is obviously we still wanted to make sure they were translating their favorite shows. They weren't forced to do any translation.
Sure, of course.
And then the third part of that is we had to negotiate with Japan on the recoupables for each title. The amount we can pay is effectively the recoupables against the show. And so every quarter or every year, whenever licenses come up for renegotiation, we would try to like push that up. We would say, okay, it was $200 an app. Okay, can we do $225, $250? And we just try to keep pushing it upwards because that ultimately will increase our ability to pay more for those translations.
Japan owns those scripts after you're done anyway, so it only makes sense that you get to recoup that cost, right?
That's correct, yeah. But they also didn't want you to buffer it too much, because in their mind, if you're like putting in too much buffer, then maybe you're like pocketing it or something.
Yeah. I have to say, the one thing that really impressed me from those early days about your tech stack is that you somehow managed to get Flash to use Aegis subtitles, like, which is the gold standard for fan subbing, and to this day is what I use for my subtitles. And they offer like ridiculous amounts of control as far as places, like typesetting and placement and fonts. How did you do that?
Yeah, we were engineers, so right. we just said we're gonna have to build this in Flash, and as you know, Flash is not the easiest programming language to build against, but it was kind of the internet standard at the time, and so you really had no choice. You had to build using Flash if you wanted to do any sort of video playback or audio playback. And we originally said, why not just support just simple text files? But all of our subtitlers said, we use Aegis. Like we use it to do the actual like subtitling and the placements and layouts, and we want our work to be reflected in the final product. And so we said, okay, all right, let's figure out how to actually build this into Flash. I want to say, even though we got close, I don't think we're like 100% because Flash is not frame accurate with respect to the playback of the videos. Therefore, sometimes it's still not like exact.
Yeah. Now, you were running ads also in those early days, and I believe that was all Flash-based too, correct?
In the videos they were, but the Flash ads at the time were really provided by like these video in nascent and emerging Flash ad networks. So you would just go work with one of these video ad networks. I think one of them is like Video Egg or something.
Run ads, basically.
Right, and then you would embed their Flash capable ad delivery code into your Flash player, and then you have to figure out how to make it show up on time and disappear and all of that. But we were just pulling those directly from the ad networks that were providing them to us.
So you never had an ad sales department?
We had ad sales, but we were focusing on display and packaging and branded first. And then later on, as the video delivery side became more mature, the ad tech became more mature, we could deliver video ad assets into our video players and have that be part of the ad sales bundle as well.
The site was obviously coming along. You were building an audience. You were, hitting subscriber milestones, I'd imagine, fairly regularly. When did you start talking about some sort of exit for Venrock?
We didn't really consciously think about like an exit for Venrock. I think we usually with startups, it's kind of like all or nothing. It's like either everyone exits or not. So we weren't thinking particular investors.
Right. But you didn't exit though.
Yeah. So at the time, we were growing, and this was around 2013, 2014 timeframe. Yeah. We were getting to a point where MGs were getting more bigger. we were also growing very quickly. We had like big expansion plans. Wanted to also staff up and to do all the things that we weren't doing. Now, for example, we were just pure product and tech. We didn't have any marketing. We didn't have any business development. We didn't have any FP&A, like any of the real company functionality you can think of today. And so we started talking to investors, and one of those was the Chernin Group. They previously, they were founded by the former president of Fox.
Yeah, Peter Chernin.
Peter Chernin, yeah. And they were, obviously extremely well connected in media, and they definitely knew what they were doing. Really wanted to work with them to grow Crunchyroll bigger. So that was around the time when we were looking at a few deal options, and the one with the Chernin Group seemed the most compelling in terms of being able to grow Crunchyroll to the next, take it to the next phase.
Like how so? What could they do for you that would help you with that?
Yeah, so for example, helping us with partnerships, helping us grow the executive team. They were very deep at the time in potentially acquiring Hulu. So that was potentially another partnership opportunity. That, along with many others. Later on, they had a partnership with AT&T, which translated into partnerships for the Crunchyroll brand into the AT&T stack, and then Warner came along after that. So there were definitely a lot of upsides to working with an operator with such deep experience in media.
You were trying a bunch of different verticals at this point. I seem to remember this is around the time where you started getting all rights to things, and you didn't really know what to do with the additional like broadcast and home video rights. You started dipping your toes into manga. Can you tell me about some of those like little side projects?
We just wanted to do streaming. We didn't really want to do all the other stuff related to the brand management or merchandising or home video or television. We thought of ourselves as primarily a streaming platform where people can go to watch anime immediately when it comes out in Japan, almost the same way you would think of like a TV network. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know what ended up being better. We were kind of pressured into it because the licensors, they at some point said, you know what, we would love to give you the streaming rights, but if we do, Funimation's not going to pay us for anything else, and so they're lowballing you if you don't, step up and take more rights, and so you're not going to be able to get this title. And so when faced with the reality of either get nothing or pay more to get all rights and then take the streaming for ourselves and have to figure out everything else, we said, okay, well, we have to then get all rights and then figure out everything ourselves. We started doing that. We got down a path where we started our own home video label. We had a merchandising team, did some incredible things on the merchandising side. We were definitely the new kids on the block, but we were growing quite quickly in terms of our capabilities to be all rights managers of anime IP.
Just strategically moving into areas you needed to go.
That's correct, because if we didn't, then we would be at risk of losing those titles.
Right. Now, Funimation was the 800-pound gorilla in the industry at that point on the U.S. side, and they were competing with you guys quite aggressively. Fans love to, take their favorite anime labels and kind of smash them together like, robot figures. But how contentious actually was it in real life?
We definitely competed very much heads-on when it comes to content acquisition. But I think, it's a small industry. We see each other at all the shows, and we continue to have dialogue. And that was also one of the reasons why we ended up finding a way to do a partnership together later on. At the time, it was very much, okay, if we can't get this title, then they're going to get it, and vice versa. Again, our DNA at the time was we were internet guys, we were a streaming platform, and so I think we thought about things, I want to say a little bit differently than their approach. For them, distribution is, okay, I'm going to license this title and sub-license it to Hulu, or I'm going to put this other right to this other company. For us, we didn't see ourselves as that middleman. We were like, we're going to take these rights because we're going to use it ourselves, because we think that having these streaming rights is going to grow the fan base and the business. And so when we got the streaming rights, our expansion wasn't necessarily let's focus on getting more all rights. It was get the all rights if we needed to, but we wanted more streaming rights. We wanted wanted more international territories. We were very, very early in terms of growing into, say, Latin America, or getting into Europe, getting into Middle East, getting into areas where there was still a lot of investment needed, but we just firmly believe that the internet kind of breaks all those boundaries, and it didn't make sense for licensing to be on such a country by country basis. It really should be worldwide, or at least world outside of Asia, or world outside of Japan.
Right. What territory outside of North America was the biggest unlock for you?
The first unlock really was Latin America. We started with Spanish and Portuguese, but it was really just to show to ourselves that international expansion makes complete sense, and that even the service in a completely different language with complete different customer support and brand and community and different sometimes different content lineups, it's different price points and all of that. It still made sense, and so we never stopped expanding internationally.
Getting back to the main through line of how things happened. So Chernin Group folded you into their Otter Media branch. Do I have that right, or?
Yeah, so Otter Media is a joint venture between the Chernin Group and AT&T. And underneath Otter Media, Chernin Group contributed their various previous investment assets, including Crunchyroll, Fullscreen, and some other assets.
Right, and then they have folded all that for time under Verve.
Verve was our consumer-facing rebrand, if you will. The thinking at the time was, anime is great. It's an amazing pillar for content. We think that there's adjacent audiences or adjacent content that could build into a bundling of content. We took Crunchyroll as one of the the tent poles. We were able to pull in Funimation as part of that deal. So Funimation is another channel, and then we also were able to pull in some other channels like Frederator and Geeks and Sundry and others. Exactly, and then we wanted to kind of combine all that into a mini cable package, if you will, for all of fandom.
Was that something that you were in favor of, or were you just kind of like, guys, this is our brand?
Well, the brands were quite isolated, right?
Yeah.
So Crunchyroll still had its own brand, and it had its own direct-to-consumer and its own apps. The Crunchyroll experience continues to be quite focused on the core anime fan. For example, like the Aegis sub typesetting that only existed in Crunchyroll universe, and then the Verve stack was really more focused on the bundling Crunchyroll with the other adjacent verticals. What was great is that enabled us to deploy more marketing dollars to go after broader audience, and then that halo effect benefited Crunchyroll and all the other channels that's in that package.
Do you think that that experience under AT&T and Chernin Group was that ultimately helpful, or did it affect your path in a positive way? Is what I think I'm asking here.
Yeah. I think it's tough to look at any of this stuff in vacuum in hindsight. The reasons that we wanted to do that deal, with AT&T and Warner, we realized that as Crunchyroll was growing, there were things that we really wanted to do, the anime rights and for the anime community, that we just could not do ourselves. We did not have the capability of doing ourselves.
Like what?
For example, we want to do theatrical distribution. That's something Warner could do. We could not. We wanted to have a TV channel. We explored for the longest time having a bona fide TV channel in the U.S. We couldn't do that, but the closest thing was, can we get a part of like Cartoon Network? Can we have our own Crunchyroll block? Again, something that was within the Warner universe, but not within ours. We want to figure out, can we build content collaborations with IP outside of just core Japanese IP. For example, can you take DC characters and make anime around them? And that was something Warner and DC did. And so on paper, so much of it made sense. And so we went into that with real earnest that there could be a real possibility to build a media company that did all the different things that we imagine could be possible with anime IP.
You guys were really kind of turning heads at this point. This is the point where I think you guys really kind of became the top name in anime, at least for the English-speaking world. Were there any this is really cool moments for you that kind of stick out in your memory?
I think one of the really proud moments I felt was when Colin, who we hired on as COO, joined, and
Colin Becker.
That's right, and he really wanted to take the Crunchyroll brand farther than we ever could imagine ourselves. So, for example, he was all in on experiential. He wanted to launch a convention. So we started Crunchyroll Expo, ran that for a couple of years. It was really, really tough being in the convention space. We were getting better and better at it every year, but it was just something that, if you have a convention, you see the fans there, and you're doing the programming and the booths, like something that when you see very tangibly, it makes you very, very very proud. Another one was we started the anime awards. The first few years we started that, we did that in Hollywood. Being able to showcase and have an awards show that celebrates the best moments in anime was something that we were really passionate about, and it still continues obviously to this day.
Now, was that important to you from a promotional standpoint, or from like what was the actual impetus behind
I think it was just a moment to celebrate anime, and to hopefully be able to show the creators how much this means to fans around the world, and to have fans be there to celebrate their accomplishments. It was a little bit tough in the early years because it was in Hollywood, and there weren't actually a lot of Japanese directors or producers who were able to make it over there for the show.
Right.
But now it is very much the defining event for anime. And then just like a personal anecdote, this one time I was flying from Tokyo to San Francisco. I land in San Francisco. Basically, I was going through security, and I was right about to get out of the airport, and then the security person he stops me. He's like, "Hey, you, get over here." I was a little worried. I'm like, did I do something wrong? Am I gonna get in trouble? And then he once I'm over, he looks at me. He's like, "You got the Crunchyroll shirt on. I like Crunchyroll." I'm like, and then he sent me on my way. Right. So it's
no body cavity search, nothing.
None that I can disclose.
Okay.
Just kidding. Being able to rep your brand, being able to wear that T-shirt and have people on the streets recognize that and have a emotional bond to the brand that you built, I think is something that will always stay with me.
Were there any early or even mid-stage fan interactions that left a mark on you, good or bad?
There's always fans that want to take a picture. I'm a pretty shy person. I also, everyone in the industries and working at Crunchyroll deserves recognition for what they've done. Extremely honored that Sony has taken Crunchyroll and continue to build and continue to invest, and that they're carrying on that torch.
Do you still watch anime?
Not as much as I used to. Just don't have as much time these days to watch honestly anything. But I've watched a few in the last 2-3 years.
Was it hard to step away?
Not really. For me at the time, I did everything I wanted to do, which was when I left, we essentially consolidated Funimation through the partnership. We had already expanded to all the global territories outside of Asia, and we were on our way to producing content and making originals. I wasn't really sure what would be the next big step other than just continued organic growth. And I'm a serial entrepreneur. I very much enjoy, especially the first 0 to 1. So that's when I decided to step aside and let someone who's better at going, from the 100 and above to kind of take the reins. The
Sony acquisition, obviously that was a huge deal. Did you see that as big a deal as it became for you, or did you know what it would turn Crunchyroll into? I think you never know, but you always hope. And I knew at the time that Sony was incredibly invested in wanting to make sure anime is a success. Sony and music and Sony Pictures both had so much ambition, and obviously the Sony music side, they already had production studio with Aniplex. They already were making investments into streaming platforms around the world. PlayStation, which is a big driver of subscribers for Crunchyroll, along with other consoles like Xbox and Nintendo. Sony didn't have a
streaming platform themselves. They shut down their own streaming platform, I think a few years before. That's right. And then so it just seemed like it really was the right home. And props to them for continuing to invest into the business.
What do you think of what Crunchyroll is today?
I think it's amazing. I think Crunchyroll is continuing to expand and to carry fandom and to carry anime to the next level. It's certainly become part of the general pop culture and the zeitgeist. It continues to grow. I'm very proud, and I have so much respect for the Crunchyroll team. Raul, Gita, Asa, Terry, Liz, Travis, Mitchell. I think they've done an incredible job, and I can't wait to see what's next.
I mean, what is next? They're on half the production committees now.
Well, that means there's another half to join, maybe. I don't know.
Jesus, since leaving Crunchyroll, you've I counted 4 different startups that you've been a part of. GGWP. What is GGWP?
So GGWP is AI moderation for games and for communities. And the inspiration came from a little bit of a personal use case. So after Crunchy, I was actually, this was 2020, I was actually planning to travel, do a bit more travel, which didn't end up happening because COVID and everyone got locked down and you're stuck at home, can't go outside. So I reconnected with friends and we just played video games. We played like PUBG and Fortnite and Apex Legends. And as we're playing these video games, especially the ones that have like a text chat or something, the comments were like pretty toxic. And so we're like, why isn't anyone doing something about this? And we talked to our friends in the game industry, and we realized that although some games, the really big ones, have their own bespoke solution, there wasn't really much tools or infrastructure they can leverage to figure out if people are saying bad things that were, being toxic or harassment or being racist or things like that.
No, you had to subject a human to that.
That's right. The only way you could do that was if someone was being a bully to you, you can report them, and then customer support would look at it and they would be like, okay, was this racist or not? Okay, well, do I temporarily ban this other person? That could be like a day, 2 days, or never happens. If you see bad activity happen and nothing happens, maybe you get triggered and next time you go and say something toxic, right? So all of this is kind of not set up to be very good for the entire community. We basically set about to build a system that automatically does this with AI. And this was actually before AI was cool. So we were building our own, essentially, language models, and very lightweight ones, so we can very cheaply detect and analyze conversation about what people are saying, whether positive or negative from a sentiment perspective. And then we would then provide that back to the games, and then the games can then decide, do I want to block this chat, or do I want to mute this person, or whatever. So GWP, we started in 2020. We just raised a Series A round at the beginning of this year, led by Headline Ventures. It continues to grow, and the team continues to do an amazing job there.
Okay, so next we have Ven.
Yeah, so Ven is a curated community of builders, creators, talent at the intersection of tech, entertainment, and media. It really started with my friend Patrick Lee, who is one of the founders of Rotten Tomatoes. He had always curated his own personal community across both East and West of folks in this at this intersection. And over time, we realized that this could actually be something even bigger. And so we set up a company. Patrick and his Holly and Dan and his team, basically they're building what I think is essentially the best founder, entrepreneur, creator, talent community at the intersection of tech, entertainment, and media.
So it's kind of just incubation, so it doesn't really do anything on its own.
It's like more like a community where people can talk and share ideas.
Like
and
online?
Both online and offline. Offline is actually quite a big component. So there's offline mixers, events, dinners. Even though it's a company, it's not necessarily built for like a profit. It's more for can we build a really cool community of people and then be able to expand everyone's network, be able to tackle challenges together, be able to share and all those cool things.
Gotcha. Okay. Forge.
Yeah, so Forge is actually spun out from GGWP. One of the biggest challenges we found in gaming is that gaming is very challenged with respect to distribution. I've only spent a few years building the gaming space after leaving Crunchyroll, but working at the GWP side, basically learned a lot about game distribution. And there are so many challenges today to game distribution. On the mobile side, the challenges being you really need to outspend all the other mobile games. Otherwise, you cannot buy users, which means that you have to be able to monetize those users better than anyone else. Otherwise, you can't buy those users to begin with. But that means that you have to build certain kinds of games, because if you can't have the right high enough monetization for those users, then you don't have a game. On the PC side, it's very unpredictable. You don't really know when you publish a game whether it will be successful or not. There are so many different factors that go into whether your game is going to be successfully distributed or not. Even today, AAAs have a hard time predicting whether when they publish a game they'll be successful. And this wasn't the case many years ago.
Yeah.
So we're still working on it. We're still trying to figure out and tackle those challenges. But one of the things that we're really excited about is that nowadays there are so many more indie game creators, and those indie game creators can build games with much smaller budget that are much richer in experience. And we think that the path towards saving at least parts of the game industry is to empower these creators or indie developers or indie studios to be more successful by providing them tools and capabilities.
As the rest of that industry is burning to the ground, you might be on the forefront.
Yeah, it's just the challenge is no one knows if you're producing like a $100 million budget game, whether it will be successfully marketed and distributed 3-4 years from now, because the landscape's changing so much.
And then finally, we just talked about this the other day, Anibiz. This is cool to me. Could you explain what Anibiz is?
Yeah, so Anibiz is basically my foray back into the anime industry, if you will. I guess
just when you think you're out.
Just when you think you're out. It actually came together quite quickly, really in the last couple of months. Actually driven by my two co-founders, Brady, who used to be a CEO of Crunchyroll for like 15 years, and then Sei, who was the head of business development at Crunchyroll for many years. And
Sei Song. Yeah,
that's
before
right.
that, he was at Toei Animation.
That's right, yeah. And then he just left his stint at Viz for quite a few years as well. We basically connected over like around Anime Japan timeframe back in March. And one of the challenges that we see, the anime licensing industry has not really grown. After 5 years of not going to Anime Japan and going back, it's still the same folks.
Oh yeah, and it's like the same completely overworked, like 2 people in each licensing office having to sign off manually on 300 renewals, and yeah, it's a nightmare.
That's right. Not changing is not necessarily bad, but the fact that if you keep doing the same thing again and you expect a different result, I think that's not plausible and not logical. In order for anime to grow, outside of streaming, because streaming has grown so much, but you're looking at the other categories like merchandising, video games, events, experiential, that has definitely not grown at the same pace as the streaming side of the business in the last 15 years. And a big part of that is because we think, our bet is that it is really difficult to break into the anime industry, to work with anime IP. Like how do you even do it? If I'm a influencer or a startup or a creator or a merchandising company, and I've not worked with anime IP, or maybe only infrequently work with anime IP, it's very difficult for me to say I'm going to go buy plane tickets, fly to Japan to try to figure out and who do I talk to, which IP do I work with, how do I do the contract, what's the royalty report, how do I do approvals, like all of that is just such a high barrier, right?
So just a lot of hand-holding on both ends.
That's correct. And so we want to build a technology platform and a network that enables anyone in the world to work with anime IP. And the starting point of that is we've built a database of anime titles that maps the anime IP to the licensing company or the production committee member or the rights sales window. As you know, even that is itself complicated. For every title, there's many different stakeholders depending on the territory, the kind of rights. When you want to put something out there, there's different people you might need to talk to. Someone coming in new into the anime industry, that's just such a high hurdle. I just want to work with Bleach. I don't know who to talk to and where, or how to reach out to whom. I just know that I want to make a Bleach T-shirt. So how do I make that happen? With AniBiz, with this database, we allow any licensee or prospective licensee to go to our website, click on a title, be able to indicate they want to license a certain category, what territories they want, what type of products they are looking to make, and then we connect them directly to the right window to make that happen. That level of transparency has not existed online ever. And the other part of this is we believe that today maybe there's like 100 licensees in the world that actually knows how to work with anime IP. We think that should be thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of potential new licensees. There are so many creators out there who would love to work with anime IP, do collabs. There's so many startups that approach me all the time and ask me, how do I work with anime IP? For those new licensees, and for all the existing ones, we've built a licensee database. Anyone can register. It's completely free. And when you register, you basically build out your licensee profile. You say, what kind of company you are, where you're based, what kind of products do you make, what kind of things do you do, what IPs have you worked with in the past, and then we make all of that searchable by the licensors. So that's another aspect of the platform. Those are the two we've launched so far, and we just announced a few days ago. But over time, we're going to build out technology to simplify the rest of that process. For example, we have a contract templating system that simplifies contracting based on the type of rights you're looking for. We have an AI approvals platform that basically can do very standardized checks that most people don't realize they need to do. For example, did you add the right copyright or trademark? Did you occlude a main character? Did you do this in the wrong color scheme? Once the AI does the basic checking, then the licensor can do the check and the final pass. All those things we think will save time on both sides.
Now, I can definitely see use cases for that. Like the one I was talking about over the weekend was like, what if Kellogg's wants, one of the high Q kids, they don't, on Wheaties or something, that's probably not Kellogg's, but you get my idea. But they don't have any idea how to contact an anime company, let alone how the process works. I have two questions. First, how do you prepare a normal American or a normal like Western business person for the hell of the Japanese approval process?
In our system, you have like a diagram essentially that says which step you are. First step, indicate you're interested. The second step is to agree on basic terms. Third step is make a contract. Fourth step is like sign contract and invoice and pay MG. Fifth step is get material. Sixth step is like get the approvals. Then after that, it's going to be like royalty reporting quarterly and things like that. I think as long as you're kind of upfront and transparent about that process and the expectation of what that will take, licensees can kind of decide whether that's for them or not. Our goal is we really want to use this platform to accelerate that process by making each of those steps easier, shorter, more standardized. Even the approvals, for example, if we can find ways to use technology like AI to accelerate approvals by having good design submitted the first time, and AI does the checking, makes sure that you've done all the standard things, then it gives the licensor a lot of ease in that they don't have to worry about checking all the details. I imagine today most of the licensors are spending their cycles doing very mundane things that can be automated by AI. Not necessarily it means to take away their final decision making. They should always be doing that. But if AI can simplify and get all the basic stuff out of the way, then I do think the approvals process can be accelerated.
So my second question is, let me preface this by saying I'm more than a little bit of an asshole. And my first time I went to Anime Japan, and I've been in this industry almost 30 years, and I just remember looking around that little area before they open up the velvet rope and let us all into the seller area, looking around at all the buyers that were waiting to file in, and go, oh God, that guy's here. Really? They let him in? Oh boy. Oh, he's an idiot. Why is he here? And then just kind of going, oh, no wonder they really have to learn to trust us before anything can get done. How do you keep the chuckle fucks out? Because there are a lot of chuckle fucks going, I'm an anime businessman, and just trying to, break into the industry with, a inflated sense of self-worth.
That's a great question. With the AniBiz platform, as a licensee, you can create a profile, and licensors can search you. In order to actually contact the licensor, you need to be on what we call like a verified tier or a pro tier. So you pay a monthly subscription fee, and with that fee, we do like a background check, credit check, business check. We also, have to verify, have you worked with anime IP in the past and things like that. As a big part of that, then you can then use that as a way to build credibility. Now, on our platform, this hasn't been rolled out yet, but being able to have licensors provide feedback to the licensees in the same way that Uber ratings has a driver rating and a rider rating.
Oh, interesting.
If licensors can see, okay, these licensors can see if these licensees have positive reviews, or they're timely on payments, or they're good to work with, they mean what they say, that gives the licensors a lot more trust. Now today, that all doesn't happen, or happens very serendipitously, because maybe a licensor just happens to ask another licensor, hey, how was your deal with this person? And then they can give them the feedback. We can operationalize that on a platform so that we surface all the best licensees to licensors.
I have a hard time imagining licensors willing to shit talk us in writing.
Yeah, it's all anonymous.
Oh, okay.
And
right.
just the ratings get surfaced in aggregate.
Okay, this is endlessly fascinating to me. I'm really excited to see where AniBiz goes. I wanted to kind of finish up with some kind of philosophical question for you. This is kind of an era where AI is potentially very destructive, and I think the ways that you're going about it are obviously much less destructive than a lot of other people using it. But a lot of people have become very distrustful of both Silicon Valley and its kind of propensity to move fast and break things. As someone who's done this a few times and created something that was, kind of a net positive, in my opinion, what do you think of where we're at, and where do you see things going? Where should things go from here?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I don't really know if I have a great answer for you. I think AI is a incredibly powerful tool, but it needs to be used in a responsible way. And certainly it has a lot of risk for being used in bad ways. AI also can unlock so much more creativity. It can save all of us so much more time, especially if it's taking care of all the mundane things that we used to do, so that we can focus on being more creative. And my hope is that AI can shorten all the actual work we need to do, so that we can go back to meeting each other in person and having in-person conversation. I feel like a lot of the challenges we have with online is that nowadays you can't trust what's online because you don't know if it's real or fake. Maybe AI is going to get to a point where you can't tell what's real or fake. And I think with that in mind, then only real alternative is meeting more in person and talking more in person. And frankly, I would love to have more of that. I think real understanding can only come if you start to interact with more people, and do so especially in a genuine, honest, and direct way. And then we can hopefully get over all the these challenges. I think right now one of the challenges with AI is that it has become quite a divisive issue for many different reasons, and across many different topics. It's easy to conflate all of them into just AI is good or AI is bad.
I mean, AI isn't even all the same thing.
That's right, yeah. In order to have a real discussion about it, I think it really needs to be, okay, which aspects practically can we talk about that we can actually form a consensus, and then actually that has some action instead of just devolving to camps of it's good or it's bad.
Can we shoot so-and-so into the sun?
Yeah, like for example, AI making electricity more expensive for everyone. That feels bad. Maybe every AI company that's using utilities should get a surcharge to offset the cost. They need to build their own like electrical infrastructure so that everyone else isn't like getting their prices increased. Would love to have the price of my personal computers stay relatively the same or grow a little bit rather than have RAM like quadruple in like a couple of months.
That'd be nice.
But at the same time, like I think AI does have a big role in, for example, education. I think kids can learn a lot from using AI to better their education in a way that was not possible before. Before, you need like a private tutor. Now, assuming you have the right AI system, AI can be that teacher for every kid, whether they have the right circumstances or not. AI can enable us to talk to someone halfway around the world in their native language, translated, and we couldn't do that 5 years ago. And now we could basically do it in real time. We just have to figure out what are the aspects we want to keep and the ones that have like detrimental effects. Like, let's talk about those and how to like mitigate them.
All right, well, thank you so much. This was very enlightening.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation.